Hello everyone, I'm Motaz, a German instructor and German trainer, and I'm glad to be with you today with our module. What we are talking about, we'll talk about cultural sensitivities and taboos in Germany. So let's begin. So, facts about cultural sensitivities in Germany. Germans value direct communication. They appreciate honesty and clarity, but expect politeness in discussions. So, as I have discussed these points in previously, I mean in prior discussions in prior modules, for example, about dining, we have discussed about also norms at work, environment in Germany, and so on. We have discussed that, we have mentioned that the communication of the Germans are characterized by as being direct. Germans are um, famously direct and get to the point. Otherwise, the other person can be confused or feel that you aren't preparing what you want to talk about or what you mention or what you want to tell him. So you have to convey the other person that you are well prepared and that you um, really know what you want to raise, what you want to talk about. So for that reason, Germans are direct, and whether in the professional or in the business settings or in casual settings, they appreciate also honesty, clarity, but expect politeness in discussions. And we have learned together some expressions and phrases to express our politeness when engaging in conversations or small talks with others. How to express our politeness, how to be polite with others. We have learned some expressions in the previous modules. Um, Also regarding to the culture sensitivities within the society or within the daily life in Germany. I want to point out also another important crucial point which is formality. And we have discussed that also in previous modules, where if it comes to people that you don't know well, for example, your colleagues, your or new acquaintances, or superiors or elder people. So you have to use the formal pronoun, which is sie, the formal you pronoun, which is sie. And we have learned that together. And it's not expected that when you deal with or when you engaged in a conversation or a small talk with new acquaintances or colleagues or superiors or elders, that you use the informal you, which is do between brackets, unless you are explicitly invited to. If you are only invited to use the informal you pronoun, which is do, then you can do that. But until that moment, you have to stick to using the formal you pronoun, which is sie. Otherwise, it can be considered as disrespect and overstepping. Yeah. So the second point is formality, and the third point is titles. It's also so important to use titles, academic titles and professional titles, as we have learned together, as for example, Herr Doctor or Frau Professor or Herr Professor and so on. Both academic and professional titles are so important to express respect towards others and politeness also when you talk to superiors, when you talk to elders, when you talk to colleagues or new acquaintances, it's so important also to use the titles, whether the academic or professional titles. And we have pointed out this crucial point also previously. Personal space. Personal space is important. Maintain at least an arm's length distance in social interactions, as excessive physical contact can feel intrusive. So personal space is somewhat more sensitive in Germany than in other cultures. And that's why you have to be cautious when it comes to small talks. You have to be cautious about the personal space between you and the person that you're talking to. So at least an arm's length distance. You have to hold this distance of at least an arm's length. And that doesn't apply to, for example, your family members or your close friends. It's okay, yeah. But in formal or with new acquaintances or with your colleagues, your superiors or elder people, you have to maintain this at least arm's length distance in any social interactions with them. And also when it comes to physical contact in Germany is only reserved for the family members and close friends. So you have to be cautious about this. And otherwise, you have to stick to not to make any physical contact with other people or to the other person that you're talking to. Otherwise, can be considered as disrespect and intrusive in the privacy of the other people. And that's why you have to so you have to take care about physical contact in Germany. There are also some other important um, sensitive points or core crucial points in or cultural norms in Germany that are more sensitive than maybe in other countries. As for example, punctuality, and we have raised this topic also, and we have talked about in details previously about punctuality, which is Pünktlichkeit. Yeah, you have to be punctual in Germany. You have to remind yourself every time you have an appointment, even whether this appointment is in business settings or in casual settings, you have to be punctual. And
तुम गद्दारी ना करो तुम तो बहुत ज्यादा सुपर करेंगे ट्रेनर ज्वाइन तो है ट्रेनर ज्वाइन है बच्चा ना
hello. So you have to be punctual. You have to come on time. If you have any meeting, if you have any appointments, whether in the business or in the casual setting or in the casual context. And in case of professional or in case of business settings, you can also arrive early 5 or 10 minutes than appointment. But in case that you know that you'll come late, so you have to inform other people beforehand that you will come late and try to explain also the reason for coming late. You can make a phone call, or you can send a message telling them that you will come late and explaining also the reason for that. And we have mentioned that previously also not to do that. If you will come late, not to inform the other person upfront, just for example, before the appointment, half an hour before the appointment or an hour before the appointment, you have to um, give them time in order to make other arrangements for the other people to make other arrangements if you will come late. So you have to take care about that, what and what to say, what to send them, and when. Yeah. Um, Another important crucial point also, which is so important and so sensitive in the daily life, in the German culture in Germany, which is adherence to rules and order. Germans value order and law-abiding behavior. For instance, jaywalking, and we have raised this topic also previously. So avoid crossing the red pedestrian light. So it's so important in Germany not to cross, and also it's illegal not to cross the red pedestrian light, even if there are no cars coming. It's so important to stick to that. Otherwise, you can be exposed to fines, especially if children are existent. So regarding to this point, I want to mention also um, some exceptions. There aren't exceptions indeed, but there are um, facts about um, crossing the red pedestrian light, which is in large cities, in multicultural cities, and especially in Berlin. You find that there are many people, unfortunately, that cross the red pedestrian light. And not only from other cultures outside Germany, but also Germans itself. But generally, it's illegal, and it's also can be considered um, within the society from other people can be seen as uncomfortable and also disrespecting the rules and order in Germany, and it's not good. Yeah, you'll be faced with denial from other people in your surroundings. So you have to take care about that. And also another instance for abiding to rules and order in Germany, which is recycling and waste separation. And we have talked about that also previously. It's so important to stick to strict separation of waste in Germany. For example, glasses, bottles, plastics, and so on. Otherwise, you will have some issues with your neighbors, and also with your landlord, because all people expect from you that you separate waste properly, and that's why you have to take care about that. Another important point that I want to raise also, which is so sensitive in Germany, which is quiet hours, Ruhezeiten. And we have talked about that also previously, especially at late night from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. and also on Sundays, where most of shops are closed. And that's why any noise activities as drilling, for instance, or as um, mowing the lawn, or for example, running a loud washing machine. These all noise activities or loud activities are totally forbidden. And otherwise, you can be exposed to, for example, police. Your neighbor can call the police. Yeah. So you have to take care about that. Germans respect and maintain importance and lay importance to their quiet time. Yeah, these are some important sensitivities in Germany, besides direct communication and also personal space and physical contact. Importance of cultural sensitivities. We will have an overview over the importance of the cultural sensitivities in Germany together in the PowerPoint presentation, but I want here to highlight some important points about low context. For example, in Germany, it's the culture, the environment in Germany um, is characterized by being low context. I mean that the communication, the type of the communication, the verbal communication is low context. I mean that's so clear, the point what you or the message that you want to convey to the other person, it's so clear and it's direct. That means that the person is getting directly to the point without any confusion, and also um, the choice of his words is also made carefully so that the message or the point that you want to convey to the other person is conveyed properly and easily without any confusion. No delays, and we have talked about that. Punctuality, result oriented, um, especially in professional settings at work, for example. Um, Germans don't care about relationship when it comes to work. I mean, they lay importance on results of your performance and the outcome of your performance and the outcome and the impact on the productivity, on the work productivity of the company at which or in which you work. And that's why they focus on the result, not on the relationship. They use the relationship. It's important for them to maintain good relationships between the colleagues and between the colleagues and superiors and so on in order to be professional, in order to maintain a good performance at work and to maintain the productivity and to improve also the work productivity of the company. Yeah, that's the main goal. Hierarchical in Germany, and we have talked about hierarchy and order and how it's so separated, many levels of management, for example, from the CEO till the staff to the employees, that there are so many levels of management that are clearly separated. And we have talked about also the different ways of communication between different levels of management within the work setting. And that's why it's obvious and clear in Germany this point of hierarchy and also how to deal with different hierarchical positions. Let's have a closely look in the importance of cultural sensitivities in Germany. For example, punctuality, and we have talked about punctuality as a sign of respect for the other person's time. If you come on time, that means that you respect the other person and also that you value his time or her time. Arriving late, even a few minutes without a prior prompt explanation is considered very rude and signals unreliability. It signals also disrespect for the other persons and also that you don't value his time. That's not good. It's not a good impression of yourself and of your personality, and you have to leave a good impression, make a good impression of yourself and of your personality when you come on time. So coming late without making an excuse, without explaining the reason of coming late, and properly, as I have explained that, how and at what time. If you don't do that, so it's a bad impression of yourself that you are unreliable and also that you are disrespectful. So it's so important in Germany and sensitive. Rules and order. We have talked also about that. Ignoring established rules can draw strong social disapproval. It's necessary to maintain good relations with neighbors. Yeah, for example, not to make any noise activities, in order not to yeah, make your neighbors mad about you or make your neighbors nervous. It's so important to maintain good relations with your neighbors. Otherwise, as I have said, if you don't um, if you don't accept and if you don't react positively and properly with the cautions of your neighbors, then your neighbors can call the police. So you have to take care about that. Ignoring these can lead to strong disapproval or even fines. Directness. In business context, vagueness is interpreted as lack of preparation or seriousness. As I've mentioned, vagueness is interpreted as lack of preparation, that you weren't preparing, that you didn't prepare what you want to raise, what you want to talk about, the point that you want to convey, and also that you aren't serious. And that's why Germans value their time. And if they see that, if they find that you are wasting their time, then it's a bad impression of yourself that you have a lack of trustworthiness and reliability, and also that you don't respect their time. So you have to show your seriousness and that you are prepared to make these small talks, especially in business context. Yeah, at work, everybody doesn't have time to waste for something that's unuseful. Then, formality and titles. Use of the formal address, the you formal pronoun sie, and titles demonstrates respect for expertise and possession. Misusing the informal you pronoun du can be seen as highly presumptuous or disrespectful. If you use the informal pronoun tu, the informal you pronoun tu, without being uh, um, invited or without being permitted, then that can be seen as presumptuous and disrespectful and also intrusive, yeah, or overstepping, yeah. You overstep your relation with the new acquaintances or with your colleagues or with you show disrespect towards, for example, towards your superiors or towards elders when you aren't invited to use the informal you pronoun, which is du between brackets. Yeah. So take your time and use it only if you are allowed to use it. Yeah. And this invitation or this allowance is made or is initiated only from the high ranking people. Yeah. From your superiors or from the elder people. Yeah. Personal space. We have talked about that. Understanding this means limiting physical contact to a firm handshake. Handshake has to be firm and brief. and avoiding overly intimate or personal questions in initial social settings. So, if you don't maintain personal space with new acquaintances or with your colleagues or with superiors, that can be considered as intrusive in the privacy of the others. So you have to take care about that. You have to be aware about that. And also the physical contact. Beyond a firm, brief handshake, any physical contact is reserved to your family members and to your close friends in casual settings. But in professional or in business settings, and with the new acquaintances, with your colleagues and superiors and so on, the any physical contact is totally banned. Also, personal finance and wealth. We'll talk about that also in details. It's so important to avoid talking about finance and wealth in whether in casual settings or in business settings. Asking others how much they earn is considered highly intrusive and vulgar. Modesty is valued, and drawing attention to one's wealth can be seen as arrogant or lacking tact. So, from the most important values in Germany is being modest. However, or although quality is being appreciated in Germany, high quality is being appreciated, but also too excessive bragging and showing up and boasting your wealth and your private possessions and your high income isn't comfortable in the German society, and it's considered as for example, that you are comparing the whole time that you are comparing yourself to the people that you are sitting with, and that you are telling them indirectly that you are better than them, that you're financially um, better than them, and so on, and that's not good. So even if you are better than them financially, if you are if you have higher income or even higher income and have expensive possessions, you have to keep these things to yourself and not to raise topics about that. The Nazi era and World War II. Why it's important not to raise this deeply sensitive topic. Any comments, jokes, or gestures related to this period are illegal uh, or considered highly offensive and inappropriate. It's not only disapproved from the society or from the surroundings, but it's also illegal. That means that you can be faced to be prosecuted if you use any, for example, any signals or if you use any maybe also common words or slogans or something like that. So you have to be aware of that and not to raise these topics. And also, if raised, to be cautious and to be neutral. Yeah. Birthday wishes, not too early. Wishing someone a happy birthday before their actual birthday is considered a bad luck. So it's so important to not to wish anybody a happy birthday early because it can be considered as a bad luck for him or for her. And toasting, make direct eye contact with each person whose glass you clink. Otherwise, a common superstition is that it brings bad luck also. So, with any person, if you, for example, make toast or if you clink all glasses at a time, at a table, and we have talked about that also at the module of dining etiquette in Germany. And I've mentioned that a direct eye contact is so important to every person, to every guest at the table. Otherwise, it can be considered as a bad luck. So be cautious about that. Let's go back again to our PPT in the portal. Another sensitive topic, which is politics and history, and we will go into some details into that sensitive topic. Avoid World War II and Nazi history unless discussing it in an educational setting. It's so important not to raise this topic at any means. World War II, and you know that what Germany has experienced in the World War II and what's happened and so on. You must have heard about that, and also the Nazi history and what they have done and so on. Yeah, especially for the Jews, it's not it's considered as uncomfortable and improper to raise this topic. Suppose that this topic is raised not from you, and you are in a group or you are engaged in this discussion. So try to be aware of this discussion. If you are if you don't have any choice rather than being engaged in the conversation, and you have to raise or you have to tell the group, or you have to say something about that point. So try to be neutral and not to talk too much about that point. Yeah. Criticism of Germany's past should be done sensitively, because Germany, for example, rather than the World War II and the Nazi history, Germany also was separated East and West till the early till 1990, and that's why it's so important until 1989, I think, and that's why it's so important to not to raise this topic or not to compare, for example, the present, the Germany's present with the Germany's past. Yeah, not mention the Germany's past at any means. Comparing modern Germany to past regimes is offensive. If the topic comes up, listen respectfully without making jokes. Let's have a close look about that topic. The Nazi era, for example. Jokes and satire. Strictly avoid any jokes. Strictly avoid any jokes, humor, or flippant remarks related to Nazis, Hitler, or the victims. This can be seen as deeply disrespectful and unacceptable. No jokes or satire. Nazi symbology. The symbols. The public display of Nazi symbols, like the swastika, which is Hakenkreuz in German, Hakenkreuz, the Sieg Heil salute, or the SS insignia, which is Schutzstaffel in German. All these signals are illegal under German law, except for certain educational or artistic purposes. Glorification. These are the signs, by the way. It's the sign, that's the swastika or the Hakenkreuz. and that's the Sieg Heil salute, the Sieg Heil salute, and that's the sign of SS insignia. Yeah. Glorification. Any form of glorification, idealization, or defense of the Nazi regime is considered anti-constitutional and is actively monitored and prosecuted. It's better not to mention this topic of the Nazi era. Yeah. So better than, for example, using any glorification or idealization of it, of the Nazi era, not to raise this topic. Approach with respect. If you are genuinely interested in learning about the German perspective, approach the subject with sincerity, respect, and seriousness. Frame the discussion as a question about Erinnerungskultur, which is culture of remembrance in Germany, or modern German identity, rather than a confrontation. Erinnerungskultur, which is culture of remembrance, it's so important in Germany to for the Germans to remember what Germany has experienced in the past. Yeah, in order to maintain their present and to also aim to a better future and to be away from any other reasons or any other facts or handlings that can lead to this what Germany has experienced in the past. So it's so important for the Germans itself, but in a specific context. Um, I mean, from the government, there are some specific um, acts from the governments in order to remember the Germans about their past, so that the Germans remember all the time what's what's happened in the past in order to maintain their presence, their better presence, and also work work for a better future and not to repeat these mistakes that was made in the past. But that means that this topic may be or can be raised within small talks or within groups or within conversations or can be a topic in conversations. Yeah. Avoid personal guilt. Don't ask older individuals direct about their personal involvement or that of their ancestors. Example, what did you do during the war? This is intrusive and inappropriate. Modern Germans don't bear personal guilt for their ancestors' actions, but they do accept a political and ethical responsibility for remembrance. Because remembrance isn't done within groups. I mean, isn't shared as a topic of conversation within groups. But it's, as I've mentioned, it's only acts from the governments to remember the Germans of their past and what they have experienced in their past. But it's not raised, it's not talked about within conversations, within social settings, or within um, conversations. And the last point, focus on the lessons. Discussions are best directed toward the lessons learned and how historical responsibility informs current German democratic values and foreign policy. So if you don't have any choice rather than being engaged in a conversation about the Nazi era, so as I have mentioned, be neutral. If you have to say something about that, so be neutral. Yeah. Don't make any judgment and focus on the lessons learned from what's done in the past. Yeah. Be positive. Next, other sensitive political topics. Division of Germany, as I've mentioned. Discussions about the former East Germany, GDR, and its communist-era secret policy, Stasi, can be sensitive, particularly for people who lived through that time. Experiences and views on reunification vary significantly between former East and West Germans. Because you can imagine that the reunification of Germany was good for all Germans, and all Germans have the same point of view, that they found that positive and they found that good. But it's not true, because Germans in the East, for example, have these claims all the time that they aren't equally dealt and treated with the Germans from the West. And that's why they maybe regret being reunited with the West Germans. And that's why Germans have different point of view of this fact of reunification. So it's better to be aware of this point or raising this point in any conversational setting. The second political point, which is also so sensitive, is immigration and integration. Discussions surrounding the influx of refugees since 2015, integration policies, and the rise of right-wing populism are often highly charged and popularized. And by the way, the most important right-wing political party in Germany, which is AfD, yeah, and the Germans are divided when it comes to this party. Whether Germans or either the Germans that they are for this party, or the Germans that they are totally against this party. Yeah, you can't find Germans that they are neutral, or that he say, okay, I don't have interest, or I don't have any idea or something like that. Any Germans have a direct and explicit opinion and a point of view about this party, the AfD, whether they are totally for this party or they are totally against this party. So regarding this point, it's better not to raise any topic regarding the immigration or integration of the refugees in Germany. So the second um, most important topic, which is so sensitive in the German culture, is talking about money, salary, and personal finances. We feel verdient to. There's a question, how much do you earn? Considered rude and also intrusive in the privacy, because the Germans consider talking about money, their money, and salary, and how much they earn, and what they possess, and so on. It's all private. It's all private matter. It's private matter, and it's being away on the private side from the work separation, from the work-life separation. So this topic is being separated and it belongs to the privacy of the Germans. Avoid asking about personal wealth, debts, or financial struggles. When it comes to personal wealth, it's so important to avoid bragging and to avoid showing off and boasting your wealth and what you possess. What about your private possessions and your highly income, as I've mentioned before? Um, it can be considered as if you compare yourself with others within this conversation, within the group, and it's rude and also disrespectful to do that. Yeah. About your debts or financial struggles. Talking about economy and taxation policies in general is acceptable. So let's have a closer look about this topic, money, salary, and personal finances in Germany. This sensitivity stems from a deep-rooted cultural value of privacy. So privacy is a crucial cultural value in Germany and is also extended to many aspects of life in Germany. And the today's aspect of life that you are talking about is raising this topic of money, salary, and personal finances, because this topic, the Germans are considering this topic as too private for themselves. And another cultural, so deeply rooted cultural value in Germany is modesty. So not to show off or not to boast your wealth and your expensive possessions, if any, and your higher income, for example, compared to others in the group. So this way, you don't stick to this deeply rooted value in the German culture, which is modesty. And that's why, however, or although the high quality is so appreciated in Germany, but it's not okay, it's not respectful for the others to show off the high quality that you possess and to make this in direct comparison to others, especially if you know that the others also aren't on the same level with you when it comes to the finance. So you have to take care about that. And the strict separation of private and professional life. It's also a so important crucial cultural value in Germany. This separation between what's private and what's professional. Yeah. So never ask how much someone earns or their specific salary. Wie viel verdienst du? Or wie viel verdienen sie? Yeah. Otherwise, you can expect the response, okay, um, you don't have nothing to do with that, for example. Or why you're asking that, for example. Yeah. And that's why you feel anyway, um, yeah, not good and uncomfortable. Don't ask about the cost of someone's house, car, or other expensive items. Yeah, because this way the other person can feel that you overstep, that you um, maybe don't stick to the limits, that the specific limits that are between you and the others. Yeah, and that's why you have to stick to the limits and not to show overstepping. Avoid volunteering unsolicited details about your own high income, large investments, or expensive lifestyle. Don't ask about financial concerns, debt, or savings unless you have a very close established friendship, or indeed also within your family, with your family members. Reasons for the taboo. The first reason of why not to raise or why not to talk about money, salary, and personal finances? It's high value, a high value placed, or the placed placed high value of privacy. It belongs to the privacy of each person and doesn't belong to the public. Yeah, and that's why you have to um, maintain this topic for yourself and not to raise this topic within groups or in public. Modesty, and we have talked about modesty as a culture that is deep-rooted cultural value in Germany, and avoiding bragging, separation of people and value. It's so important. It's also a main reason not to raise this topic or not to ask about this topic because when you talk about yourself, so don't link yourself with your bank account. Don't link yourself with how much you earn, how much you possess, and so on, or with your wealth, because it will be considered negatively. But link yourself with, for example, your work ethics, your contributions, your education, and so on. And lastly, historical context. Yeah, it's also important because during the times of separation between East and West Germany, there was a regime in the East Germany in which inequality um, has been strongly and firmly and strictly phased. That means that the people, for example, um, used to hide their high expensive possessions in that time or at that time in the East Germany in order not to be seized from the government. So the Germans, even after the unification, are used to hide their possessions away from the government and from the regime. So another important and crucial sensitive topic not to talk about in Germany is religion and personal beliefs. Religion is considered a private matter in Germany. It also belongs to the privacy as the money, or talking about money and wealth, and doesn't belong to public. Avoid criticizing or questioning someone's religious beliefs. If religion is discussed, be open-minded and respectful. Let's have a close look about this topic. Religion and personal beliefs are generally considered a private matter in Germany, and therefore it's a topic that's best avoided in casual conversation, especially with people you don't know well, for example, colleagues or new acquaintances. It's not as explosive as the Nazi era or as the discussion of the Nazi era, of raising the topic of Nazi era, but it's deeply linked to the German value of privacy. So as long as it's private matter, as long as it belongs to the privacy, so you have to be aware of raising this topic or participating in conversation about this topic. Religion and personal beliefs. It's personal boundary. Yeah, personal boundaries. There are personal boundaries. Um, have to do with only the person and its own beliefs. And that's why it's not good and it's intrusive to ask about the belief and the faith of the others and the religion of the others. Avoid proselytizing or convincing others to convert their belief or their faith. It's totally banned in Germany and can be considered also as ill-mannered, that you try to convince other people or to talk to other people about other beliefs or your belief, for example, and try to convince them to switch to your own belief or to your own dogma. Yeah, it can also be sometimes scoffed at. Yeah, so not to try to convince other people to switch their own belief. Avoid proselytizing. Religious clothing and symbols. Not to talk about religious attribute, for example, the veils or the headscarves. Yeah, because they are controversial topics. So you have to aware about that. What to talk about? You can talk about food and drink, neutral facts, for example, your day, your work, your for example, observations about your day, a situation that you are engaged in or involved in, yeah, an experience that you have had in your day, and so on. Travel and geography, hobbies and sports, culture and arts, technology and quality. These all topics are the interest topics in Germany and for the Germans. So you can talk about these topics in Germany freely without any restrictions. Finally, these are some vocabularies and um, new words and expressions about understanding body language and personal space norms. And you will find also these words and these terms pronounced in the PowerPoint presentation. Handshake, der Händedruck, der Händedruck. Eye contact, der Blickkontakt, der Blickkontakt. Confidence, das Selbstvertrauen, das Selbstvertrauen. For example, here the context of the confidence. It's confident, for example, to make a direct eye contact with others while talking to them or while toasting your glasses with them or clinking your glasses with them. Otherwise, if you avoid eye contact, that means that you aren't confident and that you leave a bad impression of yourself, that you have a lack of confidence. Yeah, for example. Um, Trustworthiness. Trustworthiness ist die Vertrauenswürdigkeit. Die Vertrauenswürdigkeit. Physical Contact. Der Körperkontakt. Der Körperkontakt. Hug. Die Umarmung. Umarmung. Personal Space. Der persönliche Raum. Der persönliche Raum. Distance. Der Abstand. Der Abstand. Formal setting. Die formelle Umgebung. Die formelle Umgebung. Conversation. Das Gespräch. Or Konversation auch. You'll find that synonym also in the PowerPoint presentation. Das Gespräch. To interrupt. Unterbrechen. Unterbrechen. Turn to speak. Das Rederecht. Das Rederecht. Social norms. Die gesellschaftlichen Normen. Die gesellschaftlichen Normen. Gesture. Die Gäste. Die Gäste. Body language. Die Körpersprache. Die Körpersprache. Respekt. Der Respekt. Culture sensitivity. Das kulturelle Feingefühl. Das kulturelle Feingefühl. Let's have a close look about this topic of understanding body language and personal space norms in Germany. Cultural norms at work and public spaces. We'll talk about that later. Here, body language norms in Germany. Personal space and physical contact. Distance is respected. So it's common in Germany that you maintain a distance, at least, as I've mentioned, at least an arm's length distance between you and the other person. Otherwise, it can be considered as intrusive. And you don't have to stick to this when it comes to your closed friends or your family members. Physical contacts. Physical contacts beyond the firm, brief handshake is frowned upon in Germany. You have to stick to physical contact only to your close friends and to your family members. Otherwise, avoid physical contact with any other people, with your new acquaintances or with your colleagues or with your superiors at work, for example. Otherwise, it can be considered can be seen as uncomfortable from the Germans to be touched. For example, if they didn't expect that from you. The handshake has to be brief and firm. Yeah. And it's important to shake hands with everybody if you enter, for example, a room, and if you join a group, a small group of people, that you handshake with each one joining the group or the conversation by arriving and also by leaving. So handshake everyone within the group by arriving and also by leaving. So it's considered polite. Yeah. Hugging and kissing. Avoid hugging and kissing with new acquaintances, with your colleagues, with your superiors. Yeah. Hugging and kissing is also narrowed and reserved for your close friends and also for your family members. Otherwise, it can be considered as overstepping and also intrusive. Eye contact and facial expressions. Direct eye contact, it signs engagement in the conversation when you make a direct eye contact with the other person in the conversation, that you are engaged in the conversation, that you are focused, and that you um, respect the other person and you have interest in the conversation. Otherwise, it can be seen as disinterest in the conversation and also disrespect to the other person and also a lack of confidence. So you have to show your confidence when you make a direct eye contact in any conversation. Reserved facial expression. Germans are known to have reserved facial expressions, and that doesn't mean that they are cold or that's coldness, but it means that you are serious, that you take it seriously when you engage in a conversation in Germany, and that you're focused, and that's why Germans maintain reserved facial expressions. So also to smile too excessively or something like that can be considered also as um, superficial, for example. So it's not good. And also sometimes can be considered also as insincere. So be aware of that. Third, hand gestures. Thumbs up is okay. It's okay. It's allowed. Pressing thumbs. If you wish, good luck for others. So you can show this hand gesture, pressing thumbs. But also it has a well-known expression in German. Ich drücke dir die Daumen or ich drücke Ihnen die Daumen. If you will have, for example, an exam and the other person, your friend, for example, or your family member want to wish you good luck in your exam. So you say to you, ich drücke dir die Daumen or ich drücke Ihnen die Daumen. You will find also this expression later on the same PowerPoint presentation. Pointing with the index, it's okay and allowed. Knocking on the table as substitute of applause, as substitute of applauses. In Germany, the Germans knock on the table repeatedly. Pointing to head, avoid to do this. Avoid to point to the head when you talk to others because it can be seen as or can be understood as if you tell them you are foolish, for example. Yeah. And that's why avoid this pointing to the head. Hands in pocket. Also avoid putting your hands in pockets when talking to others because it's sign of disinterest and disrespect for others. General posture and public behavior. Your posture have to be upright when you talk to others as a sign of confidence. Noise level, we have talked also about that you don't have to make noise especially in residential areas or, for example, in public transport, if you receive a phone call or if you make a phone call. So you have to not to raise your voice or not to make any noise or any loud voices. Knocking on doors. You have to knock on doors if the doors are closed or open before entering the room. Yeah. Um, or if it's, for example, for or with people with which you have a very good contact or with very close friends or with a family member, it's okay not to knock on the doors, but Um, at any other cases or in any other cases, you have to knock on doors before entering the room. So next, cultural norms at work and public spaces. These are also some basic terms when it comes to norms at work and public spaces. Punctuality, die Pünktlichkeit. On time, to be on time. Pünktlich, pünktlich. Direct communication, die direkte Kommunikation. Die direkte Kommunikation. Clarity, die Klarheit. Die Klarheit. Precision, die Präzision. Die Präzision. Business Meeting, das Geschäftstreffen. Das Geschäftstreffen. Or die Besprechung. Besprechung. Etikett, die Etikette. Die Etikette. Structure, die Struktur. Die Struktur. Respect. For example, here structure. We have learned together that the work management or the work settings is structured. The work environment in Germany is structured. It's well structured from the CEO to the employees or to the staff. So it's the context in which you can use this term Struktur or structure in the work settings in Germany or in the work culture or at work culture in Germany. That means that the work environment or the work culture in Germany or the work settings is structured. Respect, der Respekt. Privacy, die Privatsphäre. Personal boundaries, die persönlichen Grenzen. Die persönlichen Grenzen. Workplace, der Arbeitsplatz. Der Arbeitsplatz. Public space, der öffentliche Raum. Der öffentliche Raum. Professionalism, die Professionalis die Professionalität. Die Professionalität. Formality, die Formalität. Die Formalität. Social norms, die gesellschaftlichen Normen. Die gesellschaftlichen Normen. Adaptation, die Anpassung. Die Anpassung. Integration, die Integration. Die Integration. Let's have a look about this topic. Cultural norms at work and public spaces in Germany. German cultural norms in the workplace and public spaces are heavily influenced by the core values of order, punctuality, efficiency, and privacy. For example, cultural norms at work. Punctuality, you have to be punctual at work. Direct communication, communication have to be direct at work. Otherwise, it would be wasteful for time of others. And also, you can avoid confusion or the other persons being confused about conveying your point to them. Formal address, you have to address others at your work formally with the formal you pronoun, sie. Hierarchy and expertise, you have to show you have to show respect to the hierarchy and expertise. Work-life separation, how to differentiate or how to separate between your work and your private life, and what topics that you have to raise and you don't have to raise if they are topics are private and you know that they are private and belong to you, not belongs to the public. So you have to be aware about this separation or about this differentiation between work and private life. Cultural norms in public spaces. Finally, quiet hours, Todzeiten, and we have talked about that. Adherence to rules, for example, jaywalking or waste separation or recycling. We have talked also about that. Personal space, indeed, we have talked about that. Greeting, it's polite to greet everybody. If you are joining, for example, a group, or if you're entering a room, if you're entering any place, that you greet everybody at this place. It's polite to do so. Cash culture, we have talked about that previously, and when we talked about the public transport and how to pay for tickets and so on, and to go shopping and how to pay for your shopping. And we have said that you have to have culture. You have to have, sorry, cash with you and not to rely on that the other shops or the other supermarkets, for example, or bakeries or so and so on, deal with only non-cash appliances or credit cards or debit cards, because there are some bakeries and some small shops that only deal with cash and only use cash when it comes to payment. So you have to have some cash with you, not only rely on having only credit cards or Visa cards and so on. So that's it for today. We have talked today about sensitivities and taboo um, topics in Germany, and what topics that you don't have to raise and what topics that you can raise in a conversation or in a group. And also, we have talked about the main core sensitives in sensitivities in Germany as the raising the topic of the era, the Nazi era, and raising the topic of the World War, the Second World War, for example, and also the past political German system or regimes and so on, and also not to raise the topic of money and wealth and financial issues, not to talk about religion and personal beliefs and faith and so on. And we have learned together some terms that you can use also in these topics, or helping you to understand um, these topics or the context in which these topics are raised in. So thank you very much for participating and watching this video, and wishing you having a good day, and see you next time. Bye bye.